Good afternoon, everyone. This is Enrique Sanchez, founder and director of Spanish United. And today's show, we have a very special guest. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Mitchell. I am a Superior Court judge and I am running for District Attorney of Los Angeles County.
Welcome. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for.
I know that we didn't have an opportunity to meet while we were at the panel because there was a lot of commotion with some of the people there. But I was actually intrigued by a lot of your comments concerning the issues of crime. So one of the questions that we want to ask on Spanish United is that a little bit about your background, what made you get into becoming a judge, and what would you do if you were to become LA district attorney?
Well, I became a judge because as a prosecutor, I became increasingly aware that a judge could make a tremendous difference as to whether or not justice was the end result of a criminal proceeding. And I just experienced that over and over again with respect to what evidence was ultimately deemed admissible, inadmissible, how parties were treated, how juries were handled. So, there was a certain point after I felt I had sort of mastered my game as a prosecutor that I sought to become a judge. And I've been doing that as a felony trial court judge for the last almost 19 years. What I have witnessed on the bench for the last 3 years has compelled me to run for district attorney because what I have seen under the current administration, in many respects, I find very disturbing. I see a district attorney who will not charge any enhancements. So if a person is a victim of a crime and suffers great bodily injury, no additional sanction. If a
Mhm.
gun is used in the commission of a crime, no additional sanction. If a person sells a huge amount of narcotics, no additional sanction. I could go on and on.
Mhm.
Um, and that is why I think a lot of misguided policies that have been instituted over the last 3 years need to be changed.
That's good. I really commend you on your endeavors. Yeah, one of our concerns in Spanish United is that we are a social advocacy organization. I started this about 4 years ago, primarily because there's a lot of human rights abuses when it comes to Hispanic people, and particularly when it comes to the justice system. Hispanics represent, unfortunately, a huge amount of cases, which many of them don't get due process, and many of them are forced to take no contest deals because they simply cannot afford to post bail or they don't have a lawyer. So, one of the questions that we would like to know in Spanish United is, as far as the Hispanic community is concerned, what would you do differently to get Hispanic people a restorative justice, and what can be done to prevent Hispanic people that fall through the cracks, regardless if they committed crime or they happen to be brought into the court system because of circumstances that's beyond their control?
First off, no one comes into my courtroom without an attorney. And if you are indigent, if you cannot afford to hire your own attorney, obviously a public defender or alternate public defender will be appointed. And I really want to dispel the myth that somehow only people can who can afford to hire private attorneys get adequate representation, because that simply is not the case. It demeans the ability of so many capable public servants who serve as public defenders. Oftentimes, given the fact that public defenders try more cases than private counsel, at the end of the day, they're far better than some of these private attorneys I see come into my courtroom who try a case once in a great while, and their lack of experience is telling. So I want to make that statement right out front. The other night, I think a similar question was asked with respect to, people of color, blacks, Hispanics. Are they getting a fair shake in the criminal justice system? But more importantly, are they receiving harsher treatment, harsher sentences than whites, Asians, whomever you want to compare?
Mm-hmm.
And what I was waiting to hear the other night was, this isn't going to be a hard question to answer. Every police report indicates the ethnicity of the person who is arrested.
Mm-hmm.
And so if your surname doesn't give it away, it doesn't take a lot of research to figure out, are we dealing with a black individual? Are we dealing with a Hispanic individual? And then we just look at the numbers. What are the crimes? Is it robbery? Is it drug sales? Is it attempted murder? And we see if there is disproportionately harsh treatment meted out to people of color.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that needs to be done. And I am committed, if I am elected district attorney, to look at the hard numbers to make sure that all people, regardless of their background, their wealth, their ethnicity, their education, their family connections, that sentences are equivalent across the board.
Right, because that's the way the law is under the books, that one is innocent before proven guilty before a court of law, and the fact that justice is blind is supposed to be impartial.
Absolutely. And Mr. Sanchez, I mean, given the fact that I was a teacher in the Black community for many, many years, I ended my teaching career at Wilson High School in El Sereno, which was largely a Latino population,
Mm-hmm.
and that I have worked primarily with people of color on Skid Row for the last 13 years. Combine that with the fact that my wife is Black, my children are biracial, I have a heightened sensitivity to making sure that people are treated as they should be.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because especially now with today's climate, I just feel that many people of color, particularly Hispanic people, because of the issue of not speaking English or not knowing the laws, many of them don't know how to deal with the system. So, like on Spanish United, we are not a legal firm, but we are an advocacy organization that tries to represent Hispanics when it comes to human rights situations. There was a situation a couple of months ago where I represented a Hispanic man who was a vendor in San Diego, where he was being accosted by some college students, and I sent a few emails and phone calls to the dean of the University of San Diego, and luckily they were able to get that resolved because the poor man was being accosted primarily because he was Hispanic, and the college girls were basically drunk. But still, it's not a reason to threaten someone, especially when they are working. So that's one of the things that we do, because I see abuse of Hispanic people, especially on a daily basis, from all walks of life. And because Hispanics are not considered a race or ethnicity, you could be of any race and be Hispanic. It's kind of hard to measure or to keep data of how many instances of Hispanophobia Hispanic people face on a daily basis. So that's what we do. We try to document, and we try to get the Hispanic people the best referrals that they can.
No, and that is absolutely essential work that you're engaged in. I went to an event yesterday evening where I happened to be seated next to an immigrant to this country, non-Hispanic, who, just couldn't get off of the issue of the circumstances on our southern border. Illegal immigration, this, illegal immigration, that. And I tried to get the man to understand what was compelling people to leave their families, leave their homes, everything that they knew, and come north to try and make a better life for themselves. And what I found so frustrating was there was no ability on his part to empathize um, with the individuals who are seeking entry into this country. And Mr. Sanchez, that is where I am true to my Roman Catholic faith. Um, yeah, the Bible is replete. The Catholic Church has oftentimes been a champion of the immigrant.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, and uh, I just want you to know that is something that I embrace, and it is a value. I look at my own family's history. Uh, Mother's side left religious persecution in England to come to the United States. My father's side came to this country when the potatoes failed in Ireland.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, and so am I going to, you know, somehow deprive other individuals in 2024 of, under the same or similar circumstances, trying to make a better life for themselves? No, I am not.
That's good because a lot of people today they don't understand why immigrants come here. And like I've had many conversations with both the far right and the far left, I've explained to them that because of the Monroe Doctrine, which not too many people know about,
Mhm,
is part of the
mhm.
reason why immigrants from Latin America are coming here. And if you ask most immigrants from Latin America, they will tell you if they have the choice, even if they were in poverty, they would remain in their home countries because nobody wants to leave their families and their friends
Right.
behind. But the primary source of why people immigrate has to do because of safety, because of instability in many of these
Mhm.
countries. So when many of the Hispanic people come here, they face many obstacles in trying to not only fit in, but try to be part of the American society or part of the American experience. So I always tell Hispanic people that, try to do what you can to not necessarily assimilate, but also try to be members of society by contributing, be involved in community work like Spanish United. We emphasize a lot in community work and we emphasize in community involvement because I feel that, when there is community involvement, it could serve as a huge deterrent to crime. And I think that's very essential.
No, I mean, when you have a stake in the community in a meaningful way, you want to protect that community. I also, think it's important to tell you that many of the members of the Skid Row Running Club are undocumented.
Mhm.
And so, again, these are not people that are at some arm's length from me. These are people that I can tell you their names: Martine, Pamela, name Julio, name after name. These are people that I spend hours with every week. Okay. So their backstories, their personal histories are known by myself in a very clear way. And obviously, it impacts the way I, view the whole issue of immigration and the undocumented in this country.
Mhm. And another question I wanted to ask, if you become elected as district attorney, what would be the first things you would do, and what would be one of the challenges you would face becoming district attorney of LA?
Well, I mean, one of the first things that I would do is to make sure that the 800 prosecutors in the district attorney's office um, had the necessary education and training to deal with, be it the defendant, be it a victim, be it with a family member that somehow was involved in the criminal justice system, in a culturally sensitive manner. My daughter is the diversity, inclusion, and equity director for a large nonprofit in San Diego. So this is a subject area that I am intimately familiar with. And I way too often in the courtroom that people who do not have a life experience that exposes them to different ethnicities and cultures and socioeconomic statuses, that they treat people in a way that I would not want to be treated.
Mhm.
So in terms of the district attorney's office, a diversity, equity, and inclusion component, I would implement very, very quickly. Having said that as well, I am not going to sugarcoat, my perceptions of how individuals who harm our community need to be dealt with. If you suffer from mental illness, if you suffer from addiction, you need treatment. You need to address those issues. If you pose a serious threat to the safety and well-being of the community, you need to be removed from the
Mhm.
community for a period of time. I think you mentioned earlier of the street vendors. I mean, how many cases did I gotten in my court where you have a gang in a particular area, will extort vendors, operators of food trucks, local business people. I have no tolerance for that. When you prey on the most vulnerable members of our community, you need to be sanctioned in a meaningful way.
Absolutely, because many of these people, they are domestic terrorists, and many of them terrorize their own communities. It's like this is something that happens on a daily basis, and in many of these cases, a lot of these vendors, they're barely able to cover their basic expenses, let alone pay an extortion racket. So I really commend you that you are advocating for these people, because many of these street vendors, unfortunately, nobody is speaking on their behalf.
Well, they will have a strong advocate in Craig Mitchell if I'm elected.
Awesome, awesome. And as far as the smash and grab crimes and the enhancements, would you further enhance them, or would you propose bills that would make them even more strict, or what would you do differently?
The smash and grabs, from my perspective, are oftentimes well orchestrated and organized operations. And like any criminal enterprise, the people who are the masterminds behind those operations, so to speak, need to be sanctioned more seriously than the people that they use to do their dirty work, if I can
Mhm.
characterize it in that manner.
Correct.
But the people who organize the theft rings, um, they need to be looking at state prison. And again, but let's say you have 20 young people go into a Nordstrom's in a smash and grab. When those people are arrested, as in any case, every individual needs to be carefully looked at. What is that person's criminal history? What is their family background? What is their educational history? What is their gang affiliation? Because you have one person who just got caught up, because some friend said, hey, we can get some easy merchandise, come join us.
Mhm.
Otherwise their life is fairly constructive, as opposed to someone who, this is their 10th criminal offense. You don't treat those people the same way.
Of course.
And we have to take the time to figure out where an individual falls on that spectrum.
Yeah, because I just feel that in many cases, when many people are convicted of smash and grab crimes, in many cases, the city attorney or district attorney doesn't really look into their background, and they just, treat them all as being the same. And like you said, every case should be evaluated case to case basis because not is there is no one size fits approach for every single case. And I do believe that there needs to be focus on rehabilitation because all the other candidates that were there in the panel were focusing a lot more on punishment. There was not really too much focus on rehabilitation. Of course, if there's a consequence to a crime, it must be dealt with. But there needs to be rehabilitation for, I would say, nonviolent offenders because I feel that there's too many nonviolent offenders that are sent to prison and violent offenders are out on the streets. So there really needs to be a type of reform where at least those that are first offenders or those that may not have a violent background that just had, like you said, happen to be caught up, with the wrong crowd, they should be given a chance to at least rehabilitate themselves in addition to
And
paying a duty to
and it's
society.
exactly what I do in the court. I carefully monitor. I had an individual who was from Azerbaijan, and he committed a crime that had uh, homophobic, uh, aspects to it. And you know, I took a good long look at this person. If he had been convicted of the offense, he was going to be sent back to Azerbaijan. He probably would have been killed upon his return. And so, what did I come up with? He ended up volunteering at the Gay and Lesbian Center in Hollywood. And the most remarkable outcome, a couple months into his, I think it was 3 times a week volunteer time, I got a call from the director of the program saying, "We love this guy." Okay. Um, he totally changed once exposed to the gay and lesbian community. The homophobic prejudices that he had, just fell to the wayside.
Mhm.
And it was one of the most gratifying experiences that I've had as a judge. But we need to, again, take a good hard person and say, okay, these are your options. Okay,
Mhm.
I can incarcerate you for a certain period of time, or we can devise a meaningful rehabilitative program. And if you are true to the commitment to that program, okay, you're going to get the benefit.
The reason why I asked, Josh, because there was a case that I handled a couple of years ago where this individual was having an issue where this woman was harassing him and stalking him, and he was having a difficult time trying to get charges put against him. I mean, against her, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
So this woman happened to put a restraining order on him, and then he received a criminal complaint, and he received a letter that said that he was being charged with something that had to do with posting personal ID information, something like that. The charge was kind of vague, and this was in the San Fernando court. And what I
Okay.
witnessed in that particular court was that not only did this young man didn't get due process, but they want the prosecutor, the city attorney there wanted to throw the book at him. And luckily the judge didn't put him in jail, but his um his record was damaged for about 3 years until I was able to help him to get his record expunged. So in that
That's
particular
fine.
case,
Right.
what you would have done or you would have handled it differently?
Well, I mean, that's why we have independent judges. I mean, it has been my position as a judge for the last 19 years to at times say, Mr. Prosecutor, this is an overreach on your part. This isn't fair. And
Because yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, no, no. And that's the wonderful thing about being a prosecutor. You can exercise a tremendous amount of discretion. Okay, and it needs to be office policy that if an attorney representing an individual doesn't believe that his client is being treated fairly, there has to be a sequence of, for lack of a better way of characterizing, appellate, uh, levels that you can say, well, the calendar deputy in this particular courtroom isn't giving my client a fair hearing.
Mhm.
And I'm going to ask the supervisor to reevaluate the office position. And if that doesn't happen, then you go up to the next level. Okay. Ultimately, the DA is responsible. You
So
know,
the
and and
beats.
and I'm not going to kid anybody. You know, are there going to be times when there is a honest difference of opinion? Yes. Okay. But you know, if Craig Mitchell is elected DA, I bring an experience of dealing with Latinos in East LA, San Fernando. I mean, and my extensive network within the Black community. You know, I, I bring a life experience that I think sensitizes me to the need to really commit to treating people fairly. Um, the defense bar held a fundraiser for me, Mr. Sanchez. You know, and I'm not a pushover in the court, but without fail, I mean, do you know Joe Gutierrez, who's a defense attorney?
I'm familiar with him, yes.
Okay. If you want to get the lowdown on Craig Mitchell and how he treats people in court, ask Joe Gutierrez.
Okay. I can
Okay.
definitely do that.
Okay.
I could definitely do that. That's what I do.
You
To,
know,
to ask questions about those that want to serve for the community.
and ask Carmine Romero, ask Julio Avalos. You know, come down to Skid Row any of the 3 days a week that I'm down there, and talk to our Hispanic runners, and pull them aside, give me the lowdown on the judge.
Impressive. That's really something that I do commend, because not too many judges want people to know about their character.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And another question we wanted to ask, in terms of crime, would you say that under the Gascon administration, would you say the issue of crime has really gotten to the point that is unbearable, or is it getting to the point of becoming unbearable?
um well, if you've been a victim of a crime, it's unbearable. Okay. If you are watching the evening news and you haven't personally been the victim of a crime or know someone who has, it's getting there. That's how I would delineate it. Is that, in my opinion, are property crimes, some of the crimes that the result of people suffering mental illness due to prolonged drug use, uh, those crimes are going up because they're not effectively being dealt with under the current administration.
And what is causing Mr. Gascon not to prosecute these people? Is it because there's a huge prison population, or is it because he doesn't want to enforce the laws already on the books? It's like, what is causing Mr. Gascon not to prosecute these criminals that are doing all these crimes?
My view is that George Gascon is committed to a certain ideology that ultimately is not sufficiently thought out. His decision not to prosecute any individual for illegal drug possession, for instance, if you possess methamphetamine, if you possess fentanyl, heroin, uh, name your drug. Um, his policy is those cases will not be charged.
Mm.
And consequently, law enforcement is turning a blind eye to the people who are using those illegal drugs. And as a result, addicts are not entering the criminal justice system. And it's not my intent to lock those folks up, but it is my intent to get them into treatment.
Mm.
And given what I do on Skid Row, given what I've seen for the last close to 20 years on the bench, an addict is not going to address their addiction unless there is a sufficient incentive to do that.
Hmm.
Meth and fentanyl are simply too powerful. They make you feel too good for a short period of time.
Hmm.
Okay. And, you know, the criminal justice system needs to be one of the agents to get people into treatment. And that's
Absolutely.
not happening. And
Absolutely.
George Gascon, I think it's a misguided policy on his part. In one sense, it seems to be progressive,
Hmm.
enlightened. We shouldn't punish people who are addicted to drugs. Yes and no. I talk to my friends on Skid Row, and they all tell me, they say, Judge, you know, I would have never gotten into this treatment program, be it at the Midnight Mission, be it at Union Rescue Mission, be it at the Salvation Army, unless somebody told me I had to do it.
Hmm. Oh, I agree with you, and I think one of the things is that there is a missing component of getting people to get rehabilitated when it comes to drug addiction. I feel that there needs that the DA's office, I think, aside for providing public safety, they should take a more proactive role in helping people get rehabilitated and getting people housing to prevent people from committing further crimes, because I think that's very essential
Well,
public safety.
if you really value the life of another human being, you're not going to say it's okay to live in a tent and get high every day, because that is a debased, minimal existence.
Mhm. Oh,
And
absolutely.
okay, and I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah,
I, if
something
this,
needs to
if
happen
this
soon.
is, no, no.
Yeah, because I feel that the only way that crime can be prevented, aside from enforcing the law, there needs to be crime prevention to minimize crime. Because crime in general is never going to go away unless you are under a strict draconian system like you have in China or Cuba or North Korea. But, the DA's role should be as also to prevent crime and as well as um as stopping it.
And to address another issue, Mr. Sanchez, we need to radically rethink what happens when a person is incarcerated. One of the things that I really like about Governor Newsom is his flirting with and beginning to consider the Scandinavian model of incarceration.
Hmm.
Okay, because if we can, during a period of time when a person is removed from the community, provide them with the education, with the job training, with the psychological assistance to make the necessary changes. I mean, what do we know? In the Scandinavia, when this approach is applied, recidivism is cut in half.
Hmm.
And if we want to really end mass incarceration, that's how we're going to do it,
Hmm.
to make sure that a prison commitment for a reasonable period of time is a one-time experience.
Right. No, I agree with you. I was actually in Norway 2 years ago, and I have to say they're considered very liberal by conservative standards, but at the same time they have one of the lowest incarcerations in the world, and that's because they focus on a lot of rehabilitation once they are in
Right.
prison, and they don't even have the death penalty. The maximum penalty a person gets there for any crime is is 20 years maximum. It doesn't matter if you
Okay.
abuse a
Okay.
child or bomb a building, it's the maximum is 20 years.
Well, they treat their prison population like they're human beings.
Hmm.
Okay. And, you know, I think that's spot on.
I think it's very important that in order to make society better, we need to look after our most vulnerable first, and then the ones that have committed a crime, especially they have proven that they want to be part of society, that they should be given an opportunity as a second chance. So I think that's very important.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're at all familiar with the movie, Skid Row Marathon, which is the documentary that sort of focuses on what I do on Skid Row, I mean, it's all about second chances.
Awesome. I definitely want to check that out. I'll
It's on
definitely check that
Amazon
out.
Prime.
Amazon Prime. What's it called again?
Skid Row Marathon.
Skid Row Marathon. Okay, I will definitely check it out. Check it out tonight and let you know what I think of it.
Okay.
Well, we have come to the end of our time, so I wanted to tell you, Judge, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. You have been one of my best guests so far. And for your listeners, Spanish United is on all social media platforms. We are on Spanish United, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, now known as X, Instagram. Those who want to donate to Spanish United, you're more than welcome to. It's not mandatory, but we always are appreciate donations because it helps those that are homeless or those that are in need of resources. And as soon as I'm done, I will email you the link, and you could share it with everyone who you want to share it with.
I very much appreciate that. And we till in the same fields, Mr. Sanchez.
Yes, actually, we have a lot more in common than what I actually expected.
Okay, good. The more you get to know folks, I mean, it's like the folks who experienced homelessness, who suffer from addiction, who are coming out of prison, and are members of the Skid Row Running Club. You know, just like you said, we have much more in common than anything that divides us.
Absolutely. And I think, we need to work together for the betterment of society.
Agreed.
So have yourself a good
Okay.
afternoon and have yourself a wonderful day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate talking with you.
Likewise. Bye-bye.